right in the Q&A pane. So really excited. So today's webinar is hosted by Community Boost and co-presented by Community Boost and Fundraise Up. So really excited to have both Ernie and Casey here today. I'll be introducing them in just a moment. And we're going to get started with the webinar now. It's 2 o'clock, so welcome everyone to today's webinar, Facebook Data, what goes in and what comes out. So like I just mentioned, today's webinar is hosted by Community Boost. If you're not familiar with Community Boost, I think a lot of you might be coming from the summit. So anyone that was at the summit, shout that out in the chat as well. We would love to hear from you and welcome back. So Community Boost is a digital marketing agency that's really purpose-driven, and we exist to empower social ventures changing the world. So last year, we worked with 345 nonprofits directly. We worked with Google Ad Grant Management, Facebook advertising, search engine optimization, YouTube advertising, and so much more to help nonprofits raise over $14 million online. And our pride and joy as well is really providing the education for nonprofits so that even if you can't work with us directly, you can still access free webinars like this one, as well as our nonprofit marketing summit. So last year, we had 22,000 nonprofits join us throughout the year. Just this first nonprofit marketing summit, we had 17,600 of you join us to learn all about the latest marketing strategies to move your nonprofit forward. And I'm proud to be part of the team. We have 54 awesome rockstar team members, and we work with organizations of all sizes, big and small, to really help them scale impact. So that's a little bit more about Community Boost, but I want to really get into the meat and potatoes of today's conversation. So in just a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Ernad Civic and Casey Leaf. So I want to first introduce Ernie. So Ernie is the Director of Marketing at Community Boost. And so previously, Ernie served as the Facebook Area of Practice Manager for more than 5 years, and he really pioneered Facebook services to nonprofits here at Community Boost. So he's worked with one-on-one with hundreds of organizations to help them maximize their return on investment and scale impact at their nonprofit. So Ernie, so excited to have you. And Casey, so Casey is joining us from Fundraise Up. He's the principal implementation consultant there. And so Casey is an always evolving marketing consultant and tech enthusiast with over 10 years of digital marketing experience. He moved from his hometown in Dallas to Brooklyn. I'm in Brooklyn too, so we're not too far from each other, to help nonprofits raise more for the greater good at Fundraise Up. And so, yeah, welcome Casey and Ernie. Thank you for being here today and talking all about how we can really get the latest insights on Facebook data to use that to raise more for nonprofits. So thanks for being here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That was an awesome introduction.
And so, yeah, as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded. So I know we're going to get a lot of questions. So this is being recorded. You will get this in your inbox tomorrow, as well as Casey and Ernie have graciously offered to share the slides with us. So we'll send that along as well. Keep the chat going. We'd love to hear from you. And any questions we'll save about 15 minutes at the end to go over Q&A. So, all right, Ernie, Casey, thank you again, and take it away.
Great. Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having us. We're really excited to talk about Facebook. I know that it's a platform that is just always changing. I mean, I feel like every day I log in, look at like industry news, and it's been completely redone, right? The industry is constantly changing. And so, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the evolution of those changes, right? Where we were, where we're going. And then we're going to talk a little bit more kind of meat and potatoes, deep in the weeds, you know, what data goes into Fundraise Up, how it gets there, what data goes into Facebook, how it gets there, and then what comes out. So how to better utilize that data in your fundraising and to, you know, ultimately raise more money. So let's talk about the evolution of Facebook marketing. So Facebook marketing, the biggest difference, I mean, if I could say the single biggest difference from then and now is going to be how audiences were selected by marketers, right? So who who should we send this ad to, right? Very early on, it became very obvious that the cheapest and lowest cost per conversion for most marketing platforms is going to be Facebook, right? Facebook sees this opportunity, right? They started exposing tons of data about their users to potential advertisers, right? You could target by all sorts of things. So an advertiser could log in and say, I want to target people by, I mean, you could target by race, you could target by income, household income, value of the home, their interests, their hobbies. If you could think of it, it was in Facebook, right? And this was not too long ago. This is like right around 2000, I think it was in 15. I remember as an earlier marketer, you know, I was setting up these really intricate audiences, you know, and I was using data that in today's world would be considered invasive, right? The people's preferences, so when it comes to privacy, have vastly changed. And you know what Facebook was doing mostly was they were looking at the content that the user was interacting with. So what I mean is, what type of videos are they watching on Facebook's platforms? What posts are they liking, right? You know, typical engagement type things. And then they were going out to third-party data providers. You know, like Datalogix, Bluekai. I mean, there's like a trillion of these third-party data providers, and they were buying data in bulk. And they were saying, I have this user here, and I'm going to buy all of this data and append it to what we already know about this user. This kind of jump started the sheer level of data that Facebook had on hand, right? So what does this force advertisers to do, right? How did advertisers adapt to this? So this forced advertisers to build ideal customer profiles, or for you, ideal donor profiles, right? It made you ask questions like, what are their hobbies, right? What's their age? You know, what type of things are they into? What's their income level? Do they like traveling? You know, all of these characteristics were used to build campaigns. And you know, I'm not saying that ideal customer or ideal donor profiles aren't important. They still very much so are important, right? But they leave a lot to be desired. So let's say your ideal donor profile says that more than 50% of your donors are women. They are 25 to 34. They like traveling. You know, their average income is about 50, 75 a year. You know, they lean liberal, and they live in coastal states, right? Just off the cuff example. Well, you know, I think we all know here that your donors don't all fit within that bucket, right? Most of them might, a good chunk of them might, but they're all not going to fit in that bucket, right? You're going to have someone who is the complete opposite, who is very passionate about your cause. And so this kind of old school way of targeting, of kind of setting these donor profiles, is a little bit outdated, and there's better options to do this. So let's talk about what has changed. Okay, the biggest thing is going to be in 2016. So in 2016, with the election, Cambridge Analytica basically looked at the data that Facebook was exposing, right? And then they used it maliciously, right? You know, the fake campaign ads, you know, basically used it to target, basically make people not like one another, right? And so, and most importantly here is that when they use this data, it became very newsworthy, and the average Facebook user, the average person on the internet, started to learn more about what type of data was being taken from them or was being learned about them, right? And so they became smarter, and then laws started to change, and Facebook said, you know what? We're not going to expose as much data. We are going to hold that to ourselves and rely on something else for advertisers to use when targeting. And that thing is artificial intelligence, right? So since Facebook removed a lot of these things that you could typically target, you know, the ideal donor profile, it basically relies on artificial intelligence. So it basically artificial intelligence is essentially making predictions as to who would most likely be interested in what you're advertising, or in your case, what your mission is, right? It can look at all of the things that it used to expose. It can look at how you're interacting with its platform, but also, and we'll talk about this here coming up, it also looked at things that were happening outside of its platform, right? Things you were doing across the internet, right? And it used those to make predictions. And so I want to pause right here, and I want to tell people that artificial intelligence, there's probably, I don't know, 50% of you on the call who are probably unfamiliar with AI, or, frankly, just flat out scared of it. I mean, I think we've seen a lot of enough Hollywood blockbusters, but I can guarantee that probably everyone on this call is using artificial intelligence in their everyday life today, right? So have you ever bought a plane ticket, booked a hotel? All of them are using artificial intelligence, right? They're using it for pricing optimization. So when that plane starts getting booked up, it's like, based on what other flights are available, what other airlines have available, I think we could charge $534 for this plane ticket, right? That's artificial intelligence, right? Looking at data sets, making predictions. Same with hotels. Ever made a Google search? Google, similar to Facebook, knows quite a bit about us, right? And it will influence our feed, which we're searching for stuff based on what it knows about us. So if we all search for the same thing in Google search, it's all going to be different results.
Yeah. One thing I just wanted to add regarding the AI, when it comes to like donors and retention and how you can, maximize it. I know we talked a lot about it during like the summit as well, but really as the times progress, or as like things change and Facebook evolves and iOS happens and fundraise up, like, everyone's constantly like making adjustments, and those adjustments are always within like the AI to identify a better donor experience. And that naturally comes, if you're an organization on this call, something you want to look into is like, what AI type tools or what possibilities can you use to further optimize the donor experience on your website or on your landing page, or right, if you're running ads, like what does that look like when someone clicks on an ad or they get to your landing page, right? So on my end, when I worked with a lot of nonprofits and we would, right through their strategy, we'd go through the ad process of everything. Sometimes I would go back to just basics of, I'm a donor, let me click on this ad. And then when I click on it, what does that process feel like? Does it feel very forced, meaning like a manual approach of like, I created this process and I want someone to just go through it? Or is there an AI-based feedback system where if I click on this, ad, does it take me to a landing page that's going to be very specific to like my giving, like based off like how much I give, based off like my actual donor profile, based off a male or female, like what does it feel like? And then that naturally makes people feel more comfortable in like completing that process. So there's a lot of tools within AI. And one thing I would definitely encourage everyone on this call today is to really look through the various tools and things that you can utilize to really like move your mission forward. And a lot of times I hear it, it's like, oh, nonprofits are like behind the times, and nonprofits sometimes are too slow to like catch up to like what's happening, or sometimes you just feel like you're chasing that next thing. And you don't have to do that, right? Because that's not true. Like, I feel like we're pretty like well on it. And I think the biggest thing is just utilizing some of those AI tools and seeing like what's available out there. A lot of them are even free, but using like what's available out there to help scale that mission and that impact forward by just allowing this data crazy system, this robot, right, to just kind of like make the presentation and experience way easier for the users.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, shameless plug, but, Fundraise Up is a donation platform that does use artificial intelligence, right? We look at non-person identifiable information and make predictions on what should we ask the donor to, what should we suggest the donor donate, right? So instead of playing the guessing game of, well, I think we should ask for 25, 50, 150, 300, and 400 in my ask array, right? We use artificial intelligence to populate those amounts dynamically, right? And so you're seeing, like, as Ernie said, you're seeing more and more artificial intelligence kind of dip into the nonprofit world. But with Facebook, this has been out for many years, right? It's just this kind of webinar is proof of that. It is a bit more confusing to someone to just log into Facebook and know how to do this immediately, right? And certainly Facebook doesn't go to market and says, this is artificial intelligence. But at the end of the day, this is what it is.
Yeah, and I think we can just answer. I know questions just popped in, and as we're doing this, feel free to ask Q&As. We definitely want to make this a very engaging topic because I think there's so much information and data behind Facebook. Like Facebook works really well, but it's like to get it to work, it's definitely a process of its own. So feel free to ask all the questions. I know like the one question that popped in was AI recommendations. And I know Casey already dropped one, right? Fundraise Up does use a lot of really cool, like I'm a fan, right? But like one definitely is like that donation platform, right? It's like when a person gets to it, are you asking for $5 or the person that's viewing that platform, like or that landing page, maybe they give 20. So why ask them for 5? So that's like a really good A/B test to just try it and see if it works. But something else, since we're talking about Facebook, is you also have like Chat Fuel, right? You also have like Facebook Messenger that you can start using, which is like the bot. You also have like chat bots and all these other, and which I think Mobile Monkey is a really good chat bot that you could use as well, where it's an AI-based communication system on your website. So it's like, or Facebook Messenger also has this. So you can literally just kind of plug and play a conversation piece inside of this like embedded automated flow where someone can get to your landing page and they can click, like I want to donate, but like, or I want to donate, but not at the moment. Like they can click that button and then this like chatbot can respond by selling them or like by telling them like why they should maybe donate now and not wait another 30 days. But that's like a really cool automated experience that you can create through AI without you physically and manually having to do it, right? Like you kind of just build a process and then you go from there. But there's a lot of different tools out there. Honestly, if you I would highly recommend just Googling like top AI like tools for nonprofits and you'll get a bunch of them. But I think Chat Fuel is definitely one of my favorites. I think Facebook Messenger and like Mobile Monkey for chatbots is a good thing. And then when it comes to donation platforms, I really encourage like using any donation platform that does use, a some sort of like advanced process on that. I know Fundraise Up does that. So I think it's like when someone does get to that page, are they seeing what they should be seeing or are they not, right? And just think about your own personal experience. Like if you're looking to buy shoes and you get to a landing page with bicycles, even though the company may sell shoes, you're like, well, I'm not gonna click around. I'm gonna go somewhere else. Like it automatically creates that switch in your head and you're like, crap, I'm not doing it. So you want to create that like super smooth process. They click on an ad, they're like super pumped. They click on your post. It's exciting. It seems, awesome. And they get to the page. You want that page to kind of continue that excitement and that evolution of like that mindset of I'm going to make a change or an impact versus, oh, this is different. And they like leave.
A good example of that in real life, Ernie, is if people here have a Facebook profile, log on to Facebook and start paying attention to the ads you're being served, right? You'll see that there's likely a reason that you're getting served these ads. And in fact, if you go to like the ad itself, there's a little I think it's like a 3 dots in the top right of the ad. It's an option says, why am I seeing this ad? And Facebook will tell you, you are seeing this ad because you did this, this, and this, right? And so it's a really fascinating way. So when I get ads that are not relevant to me at all, I can't connect the dots. I'll go up there and click that, and it'll be like, oh, well, that's why they think I'm interested in this, but I'm not. And it's usually a mistake on the advertiser's end and not artificial intelligence end. So again, this will also save you some money. Okay, so cool. So let's kind of dive in to the weeds here a little bit. Let's talk about what type of data goes into Facebook. So there's really 2 different types of data sources that go into Facebook. The first is going to be, we kind of already hit on this, the internal data source. So all of Meta's owned properties, right? So Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Oculus, all of these things, right? So as users are logged into these platforms, it can obviously see clicks, comments, shares, in-browser activity, all types of stuff like this. And then the other bit of that is going to be external data sources, right? And this is where Facebook has, really achieved the kind of top tier when it comes to the amount of data that it's getting, right? External data sources is everything that's off of Meta's platform. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna say Facebook and Meta. I'm still kind of going through it too, the change. But external data sources can be your websites, huge, right? And when in a minute here, we're gonna actually talk about some of the things that happen on your website and how you can use those things to feed that AI engine to better target audiences. But these also can include applications that you might own, offline events. So offline events could be through like an event that you're throwing, right? You can collect data and actually import that into Facebook, and even CRM stuff, right? So that's really getting into the weeds, but maybe that's another time for another webinar. So there are a couple different events. So Facebook has a slew, and on the screen here, they have a slew of what they call standard Facebook events, right? And so as you can see here, most of these are e-com focused, and there are some that are nonprofit focused, like donate, right? And so based off of these events, Facebook can know how to optimize ads better based off of what we're telling it. And a lot of platforms have pre-mapped these events already, so you don't have to do any type of manual work, right? So Fundraise Up is one of those. Most donation platforms do have like pre-mapped these events, but at any rate, here's an example, right? So, whenever the Fundraise Up event whenever they checkout is opened, it initiates a Facebook event called Initiate Checkout, right? So you can kind of see the symbiotic relationship of the donation platform, something happening there, and then it's letting Facebook know, hey, Facebook, a checkout was opened, right? And this is how we have those mapped, right? So, a donate is any donation, one time, recurring, whatever, regular. And purchase is one time, subscribe is recurring. So you can kind of see how these are mapped. So, so definitely check if you're with Fundraise Up, we have this in our help articles. If you are using another donation platform, check their help articles, right? Because I've looked at a couple, I've seen that this is very common, and our friends at Community Boost can also help by looking at your account and like letting you know if you have these mappings or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And then to add to this, so for the organizations that are running ads, and I saw some of the things in chat, like, oh, like we're running ads and I'm happy with the ads. And something that Casey just said, right? Facebook tracks these standard events and it gives you an idea of where your donors are in the process, right? Which is a really important piece to it. So for example, like initiate checkout. So one way to like lower your cost per acquisitions or mitigate your like marketing risk, right, is to do something along the lines of paying attention to these like standard events and then making the decisions around them, right? So for example, targeting people that hit us, if you don't know like where these events are on your donation platform, or if you're even tracking for them, you want to figure it out. Because if you're, let's say, running ads to people that maybe hit the search standard event on my left-hand side, if they hit that search event and Facebook's labeling as search, and you're somehow remarketing this search audience and you're trying to get them to donate, like your risk, like you're going to spend, your cost per acquisition is going to be a lot higher because Facebook is optimizing to find people most likely to like hit that specific standard event. And you're asking for, let's say, donate. So it's a whole different thing. So now Facebook has to go through that process to figure it out, right? So until it figures that out, your cost per acquisition is really, really high. But one way to mitigate that risk and to really control your cost per click and cost per acquisition and click-through rates, which I know we'll jump into here in a little bit, is by changing that up a little bit, right? So it's like target the people that are initiate checkout, right? The people that are, they started the check, they opened the checkout, but maybe they never donated. So now if you retarget those people, one, you're mitigating your risk, right? Your cost per acquisition is going to be a lot lower because Facebook already knows that these people are in a process, and the chances of them converting are way, way higher than someone, they reach like search or start trial or something like that. So it's really important, like look through these things and really just kind of like sit and give yourself like 30 minutes, like talk through your pipeline of what that donation process looks like, and then find the loophole. Like, oh man, we have 100 initiated checkouts, only 20 donors. well, we have 80 people now that potentially can give, and how do we like structure a campaign around that and pull that data? But you definitely want to figure out how to grab that data. And one, the way you get to that how is to first figure out what, is being tracked. And based on your donation platform or even your website, like what are you tracking? And then what is, like how many people are inside of those specific events? And then what can you do with it?
Yep. Okay, perfect. So trucking along here. So I saw a couple questions in the chat relating to this. So how does the data get there, right? So we're going to talk about two different methods in which data can get into Facebook, right? The first one is the most common. It's what we all know. It's the Facebook pixel. It's now renamed the Meta pixel. So, interchangeable here. Most common, it's the easiest to install, right? It has tons of support. You can go to YouTube and watch a trillion different videos of how to install this. It's literally just going to Facebook, picking this script up and dropping it on your site, right? And then at the previous slide, there's some automatic mappings that donation platforms will automatically do for you, right? But that's generally the nature of it. This is kind of the old school way. And as alluded to in the Q&A, there's been a couple things that have changed the way the Facebook pixel works and how efficient it is. The first one's going to be iOS 14, right? So Apple has declared war on Facebook, right? Because Apple, is very big on privacy. They are blocking from the OS, right? So you can block the pixel, right, from sending information through the browser through like an ad blocker, right? And I'm seeing in my experience, I'm seeing about 15 to 20% of people online are using some form of ad blocker, and those could be potentially blocking those events from reaching Facebook. So they'll fire, but the kind of highway that it goes down to Facebook is severed. iOS is doing something pretty unique. They're blocking it at the OS scale. So the actual operating system itself is blocking it, right? And the question that came in the QA was, how is this affecting costs? It's affecting costs massively because iOS has a huge market share in the United States particularly. And when that data is not able to reach Facebook, you, the advertiser, and Facebook are not going to know, did I get a conversion because of this? What happened when the person saw my ad, right? That kind of communication between the Facebook pixel on your website and Facebook is gone, right? And that's iOS 14 plus cutting that off.
Yeah, no, that's I wanted to, Shelly, just ask, can you dumb this down a lot? If it would help me, I need the 101 class. There's nothing, there's honestly nothing to it's. So I know I'm gonna do a lot of these, but a super shameless plug. I was like jumping up and down and thanking Casey like a million different times. Fundraise Up like solved the problem by like one click. So I definitely recommend everyone just checking that out. But I do want to mention that, so essentially it's just the data that normally is being read is just no longer being read. So the reason so the cost per click and cost per acquisition rises because you're not able to optimize based off of that information, right? Naturally. So like if you're before you're able to tell like, oh, 10 people saw my ad, 2 people donated, this is like my cost per acquisition. But if you can't see how many people donated, then it's like 10 people saw my ad, 0 donated, right? Because you can't see it. Then your cost per acquisition is still like what you think, it's like, oh, it's $50 and we didn't get any donors. So then you have to like get more people to see it. And hopefully some of them bypass that iOS. Maybe they're not on an iOS to then give you that donation. You're like, oh, we have 1 donation. So the reporting alone, is obviously completely, it's kind of gone. And that's the problem. That's one of the problems why, it does create that higher cost per acquisition for you all.
Yep. Yeah, and the world is constantly changing, right? I mean, the future of marketing is going to be cookieless, right? So a lot of marketing relies on cookies that are dropped on the user's device, and so that is going to be changing. So Google's going to be changing up here, changing stuff here in the next year or two. But what has changed mostly, and I'll kind of bring this down to like a 101 scale. Sorry if I'm getting carried away talking about all the complexities of this, because this is what's so crazy about Facebook, right? Is it's meant to be a tool for everybody, but it gets very complex very quick. And that's, you know, Facebook just the way they are. Anyway, so the second method of getting data to Facebook, I'll just kind of skim over this. So the issue with ad blockers and the issue with iOS 14 is it's being blocked at the OS scale. Method 2 is that it's going through an alternative route, right? So it's not going through the browser. It's going from essentially your website's server to Facebook's server directly. So it's kind of like skipping, kind of like this illustration here. It's skipping the typical blockers that would prevent the information from getting there. It's a much more reliable way to get data there, and it's much you'll just get much more accurate results. The only issue with this is that it does require developers, right? Most donation platforms do not have native support for this, and I see some questions coming here. A lot of website builders, right, like Squarespace or WordPress, they have ways to easily implement the Facebook pixel, right? But the second method, the API, this is not yet supported by most platforms, and it will require developers. So this will change over time. You will see adoption go up as more frequent things are used to block data from reaching Facebook. Ashley Victory, is it supported by Wix? Yes, Wix does have a native Facebook pixel integration, but does not have this method to the API integration support yet. Okay, perfect. So let's talk about what comes out, right? So we're talking about what type of data we're sending there and how we're sending it. So let's talk about what we get out of this. So there's three things. First, it's going to be custom audiences. And in the next screens, I'm going to kind of show you how you might want to use these custom audiences to better target your potential or current donors. Improved ad results, right? I mean, it's pretty simple formula. If you send the right message to the right time to the right person, you will get better results, right? And half the battle is finding out who to send that ad to. And then the third bit is going to be, you're going to be able to measure your results much more cleanly this way, rather than if you're not sending this data at all, you're not going to be able to measure. I sent this ad to 10,000 people and I had 300 different donations as a result. Okay, so let's talk about custom audiences, right? Custom audiences, it's just how it sounds like. It is you have a whole group of people you can advertise to. Custom audiences is whittling that down and refining it to who you may want to advertise to or who you may not want to advertise to. So custom audience. Okay, so I'm going to dive a little bit into the weeds here to just FYI. I know me, I know Ernie. If you do have any questions, post this. I'm very much so happy to help answer any questions that you do have. So this is kind of the screens that it would take to build a custom audience. So you have a couple different sources to say, this data that you're going to use to create these audiences, where is it from, right? In this example, it's going to be your website, right? And in this, you can see here, I've configured a couple things here. So kind of starting from top to bottom. So the source, I used my test pixel. Obviously, this would be your pixel listed in there. And remember when I showed you all of the events, the initiate checkout event? This is whenever a campaign is launched. I'm speaking fundraise up terms, but really any donation page, right? You could have it said, if this page is on the screen, fire this initiate checkout event, right? And so I said, the initiate checkout event and people who have initiated checkout in the last 30 days, right? And then in the bottom half of this, I said, I need to also exclude some people from this custom audience. So I want to exclude people who have donated in the past 90 days, right? Can you see what I'm doing here? I'm basically saying, show me people who have launched a checkout in the last 3 days, but who have not donated, right? So you might want to send them a more pointed, a more direct call to action to donate, because you know they have a little bit of interest because they opened a checkout, but they did not donate. And then the last thing is I named this audience checkout abandoners, right? And so you can use this when you're setting up your ads and say, you know what, I need to add in checkout abandoners to my audience. Okay, let's do another example. Another example, this is a pretty easy one. This is saying, compile everybody who has triggered this donate event in the last 180 days. So people have donated in the last 180 days, right? And you'll see later on how I'm going to use this because you might want to send a kind of top of the funnel, right? You're kind of top, it's an awareness ad. You want to target people who you don't know, who have not donated to you in a long time. And so you might want to create an audience. I named this audience donors in the last 180 days. Okay. And then there's kind of an alternate type of custom audience called Lookalike Audience. So this is another level of artificial intelligence, right? So a custom audience, we're as an advertiser, we're kind of selectively choosing who we're going to advertise to. A lookalike audience is we tell Facebook, hey, this audience right here, this is my audience. These are the people who donate to me. And then Facebook looks at that, compares all the similarities between this audience, and then go and finds people that look like that audience, right? So it helps just get a small segment and it expands it out. So let me just show you what that looks like. So remember the donors in the last 180 days I just made? So I'm gonna make a lookalike audience because I want people who also look like that, because those people donate. And I want more people who will donate. So what I said is select your audience source. So this top one says donors last 180 days. So that's the audience they just made. And then there's a little slider down here. It says, how big do you want this audience to be? And right now I have it set to 1%. So show me just 1% of Facebook's total population that match this, look like my 180-day last donors. And you can see here, the very, very bottom, it says the estimated reach based off of what I've fed it, there's 2,750,000 people who meet this criteria, right? Tons. And of course, you can whittle this down as you'd like, but just from the start, that is huge potential for you to market to. And this data is going to be a little wonky because I'm using test data in here. But what you're seeing on the screen here is I'm basically saying, it says select an event with a value, right? So with our events that when we're sending to Facebook, we're sending whenever they donate, we're sending the donation value to Facebook. So Facebook can say, hey, this user right here donated $15. Hey, this user right here donated $1,000. So it helps determine the value of which donors it should target, right? Because it wants higher value. And so this is kind of giving me, hey, based off the data you've sent, the lowest value we see is 26.9, the highest is 73.7, right? And so what's the benefit of a lookalike audience? So again, going back to artificial intelligence, 9 times out of 10, you'll get an average higher click-through rate. So you're going to have more people click your ad from a lookalike audience based off of other audiences that you could create. So pretty cool stuff. And I believe, Ernie, you had an example you want to show here?
Yeah, if I can share my screen, I'm going to show you all what that kind of looks like. So I know there's a few questions in here regarding how do you get these created and all that kind of fun stuff too. But one thing is, you definitely want to have some sort of tracking, right? You want to have your pixel on your site, and you want to have those standard events that Casey talked about earlier, at least set up, so you're able to kind of pull data of your existing people. If you don't have that, then you can upload a list of your existing donors and then create those lookalikes off of it. But essentially a lookalike audience is exactly what it says, right? It's people that look like your existing donors or whatever the standard event you selected is, or like a lookalike people of initiate checkout, or a lookalike of people that whatever you are tracking, Facebook will find those people. So if you're, I know Casey in the beginning said, if this donor fits this description, how do we create more of those, or how do we find more of those people based off that data? And lookalike audience is a way to do it. So I want to share my screen and kind of show you what a lookalike audience looks like, and like a little case study of like a result of like how well do they work. So here's a lookalike audience. And if I click into this edit, you can kind of see we followed the same approach that Casey just wrote in here. So it was set up off of a website. That's where the location is going to happen. And then our conversion event was purchase. So we didn't use donate. We used purchase, which is the same thing. It's just kind of capturing the ending. We just know it means like someone donated. And then we set a budget for it. But the important piece was Casey was talking about earlier was, creating this audience and then excluding a donor audience. So you can see here, we created a lookalike audience, 2 lookalike audiences off of this specific list that we were tracking. And then we excluded a donor audience or people that have given in the past 60 days, because we didn't want to retarget those people. We want to grab the ones that given a while ago and they could probably do it again. But we wanted to make sure we excluded people that just now gave, because we don't want them seeing ads over and over. So by doing that, right, we were able to drive low cost per acquisitions. We spent $1,800 to do so. And we drove about $21,000 in purchase value. So we generated $21,000 in donations by simply just reading the data, right, of the number of people that we had in our donor list and saying like, hey, let's create a lookalike audience off of this list and put it to a test. So that kind of is a really good example of how something as simple as just looking at the information that's going into Facebook and the information that's coming out, and how you can play a really effective role in just taking that information and just saying like, okay, we have our donors, they're pretty good donors. Let's upload this list, just like Casey showed it earlier, right? Like, let's upload this list and let's create a 1 to 2% lookalike audience off of it and run ads, because Facebook is going to use that. Like, one of the AI tools, I know we mentioned a few, but the lookalike audience is a great AI tool, right? So you can easily use that and just tell Facebook like, hey, find me 2 million people that resemble this typical donor, and then run some ads to it and see how it works. And best part about it, these are all brand new donors now acquired to the organization. So it does work really well when you're able to read that data and are able to kind of just, and you don't have to be a, you don't have to like read crazy data. You just need to see like, okay, like my standard event, initiate checkout, 50 people hit here. What can I do with these 50 people? And then create something out of that.
Yep, 100%, 100%. So we're almost done here. Almost done. I see a lot of Q&As coming through and I will answer all of them. So hang tight. Okay, so let's talk about improved ad results. So I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of how to set up a campaign, because there's a ton of things that there's a ton of ways you can set up the campaign. But for this particular lesson of, we just talked about how to create custom audiences. How do we use these custom audiences when we're setting up a campaign, right? And so when you're setting up a campaign, there's a couple different objectives you can choose. And this tells Facebook what is important to you as the advertiser. In this example, I'm going to use conversions, right? Conversions, AKA donations. And then it's going to ask me, where is the conversion event happening? And it's going to happen on your website, because people donate on your website. And you can kind of see at the bottom here, I have said, you know what, my Facebook, Facebook doesn't know everything. We have to tell it some things. The conversion event that is important to me as an advertiser is the donate event, right? So I've selected donate. Okay. So a lot of things going on the screen here, but there's 2 things I really want to point out. The first is, you can remember that lookalike audience we created a couple slides ago. I've said, include this audience, which is the lookalike audience, in my targeting. I want to target the lookalike audience I've created. Additionally, I said, I want to exclude some people too. I want to exclude the people who've donated 100 for the last 180 days because we already know them. They're on our email list. We can talk to them for free. I don't want to spend money on advertising to someone who I already have the email of, right? So, I mean, pretty simple. So creating the custom audience, this will update dynamically over time. You don't need once it's created, you don't really need to go in there and fiddle with it. And it's really this easy to, when you're setting up the campaign, say, I want to use this audience and this audience and this audience. And the kind of output of this is conversion measurement. So the bread and butter of marketing, and you telling your ED, hey, I turned $1 into $3 in Facebook. And so the first thing here is, remember I told it donate. Donate is the event that I want to look at conversions. So I can see in this example here, the results say 19. I've got 19 donations from this campaign, right? And these columns here, you can obviously adjust these. And if you don't want to see some things, you can take it away. If you do want to see other things, you can add them. So I wanted to add some columns that weren't here naturally, right? And so I added 2 new columns. I said, you know what? Even though donation events are most important to me, I also want to see people who opened a checkout, right? Who opened, you know, in Fundraise Up case, opened a pop-up, a Fundraise Up pop-up. And you can see here that we had, what was it, 38, right? And then we basically divided the cost that we're spending in this campaign, how much it has been spent against that 38. And we've seen that it's in this example, it costs 4.73 per checkout. So per essentially donation page being opened, right? So really customizable. And that's it. So Ernie, let's, I guess, let's dive into some of these questions here because we have like 14 open ones.
Yeah, we can jump into it. We can start from the top and then work our way down.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So we
Casey,
got anonymous attendee. Yeah, so I see anonymous attendees. Sometimes the number of ad clicks, where'd it go? There it goes. Sometimes the number of ad clicks, ad goal equal web traffic / link clicks in Facebook Ad Manager is higher than the actual website page analytics. Is this because people click on the ad but don't go to the web page and / close it privilege? Let me read this one more time.
Well,
okay.
I think to like answer, I think this question when it comes to analytics, and if we're talking Facebook, they're going to be two, like Google and Facebook are obviously like competitors, right? So the analytical data is going to be different from your Facebook pixel data if you're looking at it, right? Because if someone clicks, so if someone's on Facebook and they click on your ad and they go to your website, that page view is going to be 100% accurate. But if your Google Analytics is going to show us a different number because Google is also saying, like, Google can't pick up all that information, or Google could say like this guy or this girl like clicked on an ad, went to the page, but they saw like a Google ad first, so they saw Google something like analytic, like, so they read information a bit differently. So it's never gonna be accurate. That's for sure.
Yep, exactly. Yep. You'll never have a one-to-one when it comes to your like Google Analytics and Facebook, right? Google is notoriously terrible at reading Facebook traffic. They really have no obligation to, right? Because it makes them look worse. So just keep that in mind. You'll never have one-to-one.
Yeah.
So
Casey, you do have a good question here. What tool is Casey using to create the custom list? I haven't seen these options on Meta before.
Yeah, so if you go into Facebook business settings, there is a section, I believe it's called Audiences. Isn't that right, Ernie?
Yep.
Yep, it's just, there's a whole section so you log into business settings, and Ernie, you have it pulled up here, so maybe you can share your screen and actually show it. But yeah, I mean, it's a whole dedicated section that says Audiences.
Yeah, so if you're an ads manager, you can click this little section here and go to Audiences. Might be up here too sometimes, but yeah, it's down here. Audiences, you can click that and create it from there. Or if you're inside the ad set level, when you click create, it'll open up this little window that we just looked at. And then from there, you just kind of click create new. You'll get there. So, but yeah, you can just left hand click audiences. You can get there. It's a fun tool. I love it. You do a lot of fun stuff in there.
That's awesome. I was keeping an eye on the chat too, because there's so many great questions coming in. And so Courtney asked, to make these examples successful, you must have a Pixel or API installed on your site or fundraising software, right? So I think there was like a lot of questions around the Pixel. So if you're able to like kind of show a little bit more like how that works, share a little bit more about how that works and where that goes, that would be, I think, really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. So yes, having a Pixel and having a Pixel on site is definitely going to allow you to create better decisions when creating these different audiences, like especially when it comes to lookalikes. But either way, everyone on this call, if you do not have the Pixel on site, I highly recommend, you need to, don't do anything else for today. Just get your Pixel set up. That's going to be like the number one thing I'd recommend you do. But if you don't have it, but you want to test out your lookalike audience, you can upload your donor list, which is a really, really valuable feed, I think, when it comes to creating your audiences. So you can upload your donor list, create a custom list, upload a donor list, and then create a lookalike off of that. And that works really well. Like lookalike donors are, is probably one of our best performing audiences. So you can do that, but having a Pixel is going to help you expand into those lookalike audiences.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it adds just a little color on that. Like the Facebook Pixel being on the site is like Facebook's eyes being on the site and watching what people are doing, right? Without the Facebook Pixel there, Facebook has no idea how people are interacting with your site, if they're donating, if they're not donating. So there's a question in the chat. Denise says, may have missed this point. Do you have to install the Facebook Pixel to use Facebook ads? Technically, no. You don't need the Facebook Pixel. But you're going to spend a lot more money, right? Yep. Because you're not going to be able to fully optimize your campaign to the best of its ability and drive the cost per conversion down.
And so I know there's also been a lot of questions about where you get the Pixel and where you put the Pixel. So do you put it on your website? Do you put it on your fundraising platform? Where does it go? And how do you get it to begin with?
Yeah. So I was in the process of writing a reply to it, but I'll let Casey answer it. But I'll try to find the link. I know we made a blog on how to set it up, but Casey's definitely the bigger expert here.
Maybe. So there's a section in kind of where Ernie just showed on the screen where audiences are at, right? Where there's a whole audience section. There's a section called Events Manager, right? And you can create your Pixel there. Yeah, he's gonna show it here.
But you can go ahead and talk through it out loud.
Yeah, so there's a section called Events Manager, right? And you can go in here, create a Pixel, right? Because it's a new, they consider this a data source. The Pixel is a data source. And to answer some of the questions that I see here, you can put this on your website, or there is a way to integrate it within a mobile application, even though those are a bit more rare, right? So there you go, add events. They go manually add Pixel code to website. Oh yeah, no worries. Yep. YouTube is your best friend. Community Boost has great help articles, but also YouTube. There are so many helpful videos to show you how to put this on their website. And there's instructions here on how to do this, but you just want to make sure that it goes within the head of your website. The head is something that shows up on every page of your website. And you want this because you want Facebook to see what people are doing on every page of your website.
Yeah. If anyone is on, I know there's Wix and it was WordPress, all you have to do is just type in Facebook Pixel plugin and just download the plugin, put it on your site. And then in Facebook, you saw me go to Events Manager. In there, when you click install new Pixel, for a new website or from a new website, you'll see the giant code. Just click the green button as you've seen, copy that, just paste it into a plugin, and it'll just do it for you. That'll probably be the easiest way, I think. WordPress, Wix, like any website you're on. But if you have a developer on staff, you can just have them kind of do it all. You can just send them that code, or they can get it themselves too. But it's inside of Events Manager.
Yep, exactly. And I'm also seeing some questions about targeting mobile versus desktop. Yes, when you are creating campaigns, you can say only target mobile, only target desktop. Additionally, if you do not have the conversion API set up, and you have the issue with Apple devices not sending events to Facebook, we've even seen some people exclude Apple devices from their targeting, right? Don't even show this to Apple people, because I don't know if they're converting or not. Therefore, I don't know if I'm wasting my money or not. So we've seen people do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many great questions. I don't know if we'll have time to get to them all, but please keep them coming. I think one of the biggest things that I feel like a lot of nonprofits, you're just trying to figure out, is this a good way for me to get the word out about my organization? Is it going to help me fundraise more? Is it going to be like a cost-effective way to do that? So I guess my question is with all of these changes, it does seem like, yeah, the cost per acquisition could be higher. But what is your best tip or recommendation for nonprofits that are looking to use Facebook advertising as a channel to really acquire more donors and also reconvert their existing donors?
Putting the pixel on the site is half the battle. The other half of the battle is measurement, right? If you, I mean, it's like throwing money in the air and see where it lands. If you have no idea if that ad has led to conversions, right? So I know it's kind of broad, but frankly, I see a lot of people do that, where I see the pixel on the site, but when a donation happens, it's not sending anything back to Facebook. So when you're looking at your results, this is going to be a big old goose egg, right? When that's likely not the case.
Yeah, and I think something that I see as such a huge opportunity with Facebook is that there's so many people on Facebook. So with all of what we talked about today, targeting those lookalike audiences and even remarketing and retargeting, these are such great opportunities for you to engage new audiences. And so especially with lookalike, obviously, but even with that cost per acquisition, once you have that donor, that's your donor. You can retain them for the long run. So I think it's important to look at it as an overall strategy to help you systematically grow your organization. And so I think it's worth it to just start with a small budget, for an organization that's maybe just really trying to explore the channel. What would you recommend that they get started with a budget?
For Facebook, from what I've seen, a good recommendation, honestly, I'd say is $500. And I think someone did ask a question too, how long should an ad run? That's really up to you. I know when I shared my screen, you guys saw that I excluded mobile audiences, and you saw that I added specifics like age groups and demographics to my lookalikes. You can do those things, right? When you create a lookalike, you set the pace of what you're telling Facebook to find. So it's so you would say, find me the lookalikes, but I want them in this specific age range. And then I want them in this specific area, maybe. I think mine was in Arizona specifically. And you can also say, the only mobile only, or like Casey said, exclude iOS, because I know that the tracking is all out of whack, and I don't know if our organization's there, so exclude it. So you can create some things around it. And then the length of time, you can run it for as long as you want. I typically like to run it until it gets to, a certain amount of reach or impressions where I feel comfortable that it's driving results. So if we reached 1,000 people, you'll see a little reach column. If it reached 1,000 people and it brought in no donations or no clicks, or it just, nothing happened, it's probably a good idea to create a new ad. Maybe that ad is just not resonating. And then the $500 budget is for the month, not for the ad. So you would set the budget for the audience, and then you can have, 4 to 20 ads. If you can have as many ads as you want to run, but just a $500 monthly budget is what I would recommend.
Yeah. And I think like a lot of what like Community Boost always recommends, just to go off of that, Ernie, is like having those ads be A/B tested. So like creating like basically like 2 different ads and like off of that using like 2 different like call to actions is just a great way to start.
And also, Ernie, kind of on that same, there's also a question here. You talked about the amount you should use to get started, but how long should the ad run for you to tell if it's effective or not?
Yeah, I think it's really, like I said, I think it's really based on like reach, like the number of people you reach or like the impressions you make. It's really up to you, like the comfort, like maybe if the ads, it's not like a specific time frame. I wouldn't say let it run for a week. It really just depends. Like you could turn on an ad and it could drive donations immediately. And you're like, I'm just gonna put more money into it. I typically just run it as much as you can, right? So until you feel comfortable that it is the best ad, right? So like A/B testing, so like running 2 ads within that $500 is probably a good idea. And you can kind of figure out like which ad is better and which ad you should turn off. But it really just depends on what you feel comfortable, right? If the ad spends $100, but it didn't bring any donations in, and you're like, oh, that's not bad, I can keep going, then keep it running, right? But if you're like, oh, $100, like still nothing happened, you might want to turn it off and create a new ad, right? And then create those processes and systems for yourself, because everything is based off like, your comfort level and your organization. But we typically do it based off like reach and impression. So if you reach like, 1,000 people and nothing happened, or like, 1,000 or like 2,000 impressions, then I can shift the ad.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Ernie. I saw 2 questions coming in and I feel like they're sort of related. So it's all about targeting. And I think this will be our last question. We'll go into how you can reach us so that you can all follow up with all of your questions that you have on Facebook ads. We would love to get to all of them with you. So please feel free to reach out to us so that we can follow up. So Denise asks, is there a way to target people who have donated to previous Facebook fundraisers? And I saw another question come in that was all about, basically being able to target those who have like purchased tickets versus like made a donation, so to their organization. So I guess what is your, I guess in your opinion, like, are you able to, effectively target those audiences?
Yeah. I mean, look, it all comes down to, does Facebook know what those things are? Let me just share my screen and kind of go back to this slide, because I think it's a good visual here, right? So just putting the Facebook pixel on your site, it will look at some things, right? It'll look at page views, it'll look at time that are spent on the page. But what it doesn't know, like it won't do by default, is it won't know, okay, this person purchased the ticket. Or in the chat, I think it was someone said they have a free car donation platform. As long as you are telling Facebook, right, you have an event mapped. So if someone donates a car, for example, you send that data back to Facebook, right, to say, I'm going to fire an event off, and not to dive in the weeds here, you can create custom events. The ones on the screen right now are standard events. So it's just kind of a naming thing. But if you tell Facebook, hey, a car was just donated, you can absolutely put that person to an audience, create a lookalike audience from them. Yeah, same with Facebook fundraiser. Oh, let's see. So I'm going to target, we have donated previous Facebook fundraisers from our Facebook fundraisers. That's a great question. I really don't know. Ernie, do you know if you can use Facebook fundraisers to target?
Yeah, 100%. So you can use Facebook fundraisers to target. It is a little bit different. So I do think it's probably its own little webinar on how to do that, because there's a little way, like there's little hoops you have to jump through, but you can do it. And what's really cool about Facebook fundraisers is, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you can also pull data of like the people that fundraised. You won't have their email, but you can see first, last name, and the amount that the people have given, which is really cool. So yeah, fundraisers are like a really good way to see like how they're performing, and then ways you can track them. And then you can also create like link like targeting and things like that, and like tracking to like boost, which I think is just like a lot bigger strategy session. But yes, you definitely can do it. There's just it might be a little harder thing to do versus this, obviously.
And if you want to learn more about how you're able to do this, you can actually book a free one-on-one Facebook strategy session with the team. So like, please go ahead and
I'll get you there.
yeah, thanks for pulling that up, Casey. So I just pasted the link in the chat. You can just book a link, use the booking link and book a meeting directly with our team. So that's a great opportunity. And also, if you're interested in learning more about Fundraise Up and how you can use really practically implement all of like the artificial intelligence and use that to drive conversions, whether you're driving them through Facebook advertising or if you're just looking to fundraise, you can use the QR codes up here. So, but yeah, Casey, I would love for, and thank you everyone for all of your amazing questions. This has been so insightful. I feel like I learned a lot. We would love to hear from you what your number one learning is as well. Yeah, I'll leave it to you to kind of close us out for the webinar, Casey and Ernie as well. So thank you both so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having us, and hope to see you again soon.
And as a last note, please go ahead and scan the QR codes. We'll leave them up for another minute or so. I know it sometimes takes a moment to pull out your phone. I'm also pasting the links in the chat. So here's where you can book that Fundraise Up demo.
Awesome. And I know we had a lot of summit people, so get ready. I know summit's coming up again in like at sometime August. I don't know if Candace has like finalized everything, but I know we're pumped. Obviously, Fundraise Up's going to be there. Casey, we have Casey talk on how to set up like offline conversions and tracking. I think based on all the information we got, like that would be like so cool.
Yeah, I'm so excited for the next summit. It's already coming up August 16th or 18th. I just pasted the link in the chat as well. If you want to go ahead and save your seats, we would love to see you there alongside Casey and Ernie, and hear so much more from both of you about all of your amazing insights. So thank you everyone for being here. We would love to hear from you. Also, if you just have a question, like feel free to shoot me an email. I'm going to put my email in the chat as well. And you'll get an email from me tomorrow with the recording, with the slides, with these resources that we've referenced. So we will be following up with you, and please feel free to engage. Casey just put his contact info in the chat as well. Ernie can too if he wants, but I'll be sure to forward anything his way too. So yeah, we would love to just continue to answer all of your questions because I know we didn't get to all of them. So Casey, Ernie, and everyone, thank you so much for being here today. This has been really incredible.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Have a good rest of your Wednesday, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.